Hello folks. Hey, I am really excited. The UPS man just showed up and dropped off my new solar and wind equipment. So now we can get busy showing you how to install an off-grid solar and wind power system. Now we're going to be talking about an off-grid system, and I want to explain that there are two different types of systems that a lot of people use. One system is called a grid-tied system, and a grid-tied system is for somebody who already has their house hooked up to the regular power grid, but wants to also use solar or wind power to reduce their power needs. That's called a grid-tied system. A grid-tied system is a good system because it doesn't require any batteries or storage. You feed the power back to the power company, and it can be used by your neighbors, or it reduces your own bill. Good systems. However, a grid-tied system generally requires an electrician, and you have to have the approval, usually a building permit approval, in order to install a grid-tied system. We're going to be installing an off-grid system like I have to power my cabin here. Off-grid systems many times can be installed by the homeowner. You don't have, because you're not using the grid system, you can wire it yourself. You may have to get a building permit, you may not. It all depends on your circumstances. Both systems are about the same. There isn't a whole lot of difference, except the off-grid system uses batteries to store the power, whereas the grid system uses an inverter that feeds it back into the grid system. Other than that, the panels and the power controllers and things like that are very similar. So you're going to get a lot of the same information regardless of which system you're going to use. But I just want to make sure that you're aware that this is for an off-grid system. If you want a grid-tied system, we'll give you information on that. Now, the equipment that I got was sent to me by Northern Arizona Wind and Sun. Now, I have used Northern Arizona Wind and Sun, purchased equipment from them. They are a very exceptional dealer. High quality equipment, very affordable prices, with very, very good people working for them who have a lot of knowledge about grid-tied or off-grid systems. And I suggest that if you are looking for equipment, they're a good place to go to. Their website is www.solar-electric.com, or you can go to either of my websites, simplesolarhomesteading.com or homesteadernews.com. Click on their links. That'll take you to their website. Now, I really do recommend that you have some more information than what I'm going to be able to give you in the videos, because in order to size a system to meet the needs of your house, you need to do some calculations, something that I can't very well show you how to do in a video. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that please consider getting my book. This is called Simple Solar Homesteading Off the Grid. It's 355 pages, and over 100 of the pages in this book are dedicated just to installing an off-grid solar, electric, and wind system. And it includes, as you can see, it includes the worksheets that you need. Very simple, but you need to fill in the information. It also gives you a lot of very good information to understand how a solar and electric wind system works. And it also gives you the information for how to reduce your power needs. And that's one thing about an off-grid home that's different than a grid home in most cases. Off-grid homes generally use some other power sources or energy sources to reduce the size of electric system they need. We may use propane, natural gas, we may use wood to heat. We use those so that we don't have to power big appliances like a fridge, a stove, a water heater that takes up a lot of power. When you take those three things out of your system, if you're not using electricity for those things, then the rest of the things in your house really don't use that much power, and you can use a much smaller system. And that's why we put together an off-grid system that is not a really extremely large system. A grid-tied system doesn't really matter, because if you don't produce as much power as you need, the grid will pick up the additional power. But in an off-grid system, you have to be able to provide all of your own power, so you want to reduce the amount of power that you have to use at your house. So I've got my equipment outside, and I'm going to set it all up and show you the basics of an off-grid system. By the time you get done watching these videos, you're going to have a lot of knowledge about an off-grid power system for both solar, electric, and then we're also going to do a video on wind power that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to put up a 400-watt AirX wind turbine, and you're going to watch me install it. Now, I'm going to go slow. I'm going to go step by step, and I would recommend every piece of equipment that I get, I always look through the manufacturer's recommendations. They always include a form in there. Because you are working with electricity, you need to be extremely careful. Okay? Even a battery system, an off-grid system, has enough juice in it to kill a person. Keep that in mind. Also, if things aren't wired correctly, you could burn a house down. read the manufacturer's and follow the manufacturer's directions. Even if it is not the same as what I tell you, their information comes first. Follow their information. That's what's really important. I am not an electrician. I am not an engineer. I'm an off-grid homesteader. I'm going to do the best I can to explain it in a very simple and basic way for everybody to understand. But you are still expected to follow the directions that the manufacturer gives you for each piece of equipment, because they're not all the same. You've got to read and follow the directions. Also, be careful. Don't just jump in and do this sort of thing. If you've never wired anything before, if you've never installed anything before, you never worked with electronics, it might be a good idea to get somebody that has some experience to help you out. The people at Northern Arizona Wind and Solar would be glad to do that. You can get them on the phone and talk to them about what kind of system would work best for you. They can help you decide on how big of a system you need and help you with deciding which equipment would work best for you. Go to a professional if you don't have any experience in that sort of thing. Even if you do, it's a good idea to knock your ideas around with somebody who has a lot of experience installing these systems. Okay, so let's go on outside and take a look at my system and what we're going to be putting up over the next few weeks. Okay, folks, well, wouldn't you know, the day that I'm going to put out a solar panel, it decides to rain like crazy. But that's not going to stop me. And what we're going to do is explain the equipment that we're going to start putting up. We're going to start with the solar panel here. This is a Kyocera brand 135 watt solar panel from Northern Arizona Wind and Sun. Now, I'm going to discuss the features of this panel, but before we do that, I just want to give you a little bit of advice. Your panels will come usually by UPS, and they'll be shipped in these cardboard boxes with styrofoam panels around them. They usually do a good job of protecting them. But when you first get a panel, you want to make sure that you check it over and make sure that there's no damage in shipping. They can get shook around sometimes. I've never had one broken shipping yet. But if it does happen, you want to make sure that you notify the UPS driver and whoever you bought it from immediately so that you can get that taken care of. I would also suggest, you see these styrofoam boards, they send them in? Save those, and I'm going to show you another project you can do with those, making a solar water or solar air heater. But on to the solar panel. Again, it's a Kyocera 135 watt solar panel. Now these panels are about 5 foot long by about a little more than 2 foot wide. They're a fairly good sized panel. Okay, you can get smaller panels that are less watts. And, some of that kind of depends on the roof that you're going to be placing them on will also determine what size of panel you might want to get. So kind of keep that in mind. The more watts, the larger the panel, it's going to take up more of space on your roof. Now, how a solar panel works. If you look inside, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of squares. And those squares are what we call cells. Those are solar cells. Now, there's actually three different types of solar cells, and they work a little bit differently. A solar cell is made up of two wafers. One of them is silicon, one of them is boron. Those are natural elements available, and we're in no short supply of any of those. When you put those two together in a solar cell, they have an extra electron on them. Just a natural result of the elements, they have an extra electron. When the sunlight penetrates the cell, it pushes off one of those electrons through a process where the photon jumps from the sunlight to the cell, pushes off an electron, and the cells are each wired all together. That electron jumps onto the wire, and when you put all of these cells together, as we've got here, the electrons are collected into the wires, and altogether it makes up a whole lot of power. By itself, each cell doesn't produce all that much power. But when you put a whole lot of cells together like we've got here, then you get a lot of power that's coming off into the wires, and that power is collected into a battery. Now, there's some features about panels, and not all panels are created equally. You've got two different types of cells. You can get a monocrystalline cell, which is a solid individual cell, and those solid individual cells will generally collect very bright sunlight very well and produce a higher level of power. Then you have these, which are called a multicrystalline or polycrystalline cell, which is made up of much smaller pieces that are glued together. Smaller pieces of cell will actually work better in lower levels of light. So if you live someplace where you get bright sunlight all the time and very rarely have cloudy days, the monocrystalline cells might be worth spending a little bit more to get. If you're like most of us that live in areas where we get a lot of cloudy winter days and sometimes we got low light conditions, the multicrystalline cells will work better at collecting in low light conditions. And this cell is a multicrystalline cell. They also do make an amorphous solar cell, which is also called a thin cell. Generally, they're used on very large applications. They're not quite as good at collecting the power, and they don't generally last as long as either the multicrystalline or polycrystalline cells. I do not recommend the amorphous thin films for an off-grid application. It would be better to go with a multicrystalline solar panel. Now, the frames on these panels are made of what they call anodized aluminum. And this one is painted. Sometimes they're not painted. Sometimes they're just left the natural aluminum color. And what they do is they actually dip this into a bath of acid, and it etches it, which makes it much, much stronger and makes it able to withstand the outside weather conditions. So it won't rust and it won't fall apart in the weather. It's going to last for a long time. Generally, panels like this, 25, 30 years, as long as nobody's banging them around, those frames aren't going to go anywhere. They're very, very strong. Now, the front glass panel is a safety glass. And it's the same stuff that they make your shower doors and your patio doors out of. It can withstand a lot. Hailstorms and things like that generally aren't going to affect it. And it won't break the glass. Very rarely will a solar panel be broke unless somebody's shooting at it with a BB gun or flips a rock from a lawnmower or something like that through it. They can withstand a whole lot. That safety glass, if it does break, will break into millions of little teeny pieces rather than big shards of glass. That's why they call it a safety glass. It also has a special coating on it to reduce glare so that as the sunlight hits it, it won't bounce off. It'll go directly through that glass. That glass is treated in a special way so that the sunlight will penetrate into the cells better. Okay, so those are features that you want to look for. You want to look for a multicrystalline solar cell. You want to look for an anodized aluminum frame. You want to look for a safety glass on the front of the system. And those are all features that should come in a good panel. The other thing that you need to look at on a panel is on the back side. On the back side of a panel, you'll see that there'll usually be a white coating. This is a Tedlar or MVT plasticized or rubberized coating that they put on the backs of the panels that weatherizes it. This stuff is very strong, and it won't be affected by the weather. It protects the cells because the electric wires run right behind that system right there. So that Tedlar coating should be on any solar panel that you get, or MVT coating, and it should also have a label so that you can confirm that it is actually the size panel that you ordered. And you want to make sure that generally that it has a label that says UL listed, and this one does. Right there it says UL listed. That means it's been tested by the department, the federal department, that says this panel meets the specifications that the manufacturer says it does. So it's going to produce the amount of watts and amps that within a range that they say it do. Now, you want to be careful because there are some manufacturers, generally not here in the United States, but there are panel manufacturers from other countries that will not have that UL, and they may tell you that this panel produces a lot more power than it actually does. So you want to make sure that it's got that UL certification on it. You can always check. This one says right on the label here, it says it's 135 watt, and it tells me that it produces a maximum VP max of 17.7 volts. And I'll explain what that means. And it tells me approximately how many amps it's going to produce, and the different information on this, temperature ratings and things like that. Now, that Tedlar coating should be on, and then you should have your label, and then your power box that comes out of the backside. And the power box usually will have wires attached, but not always. Sometimes you'll get a panel that doesn't have the wires, and you have to pull this cover off and attach your own wires. but most of the panels that I've got already have the wires attached, and they have these connectors which are called plug-and-play connectors, which are made so that you can actually attach more than one panel together. They're designed. You can see that there's a female and a male end, and this way you can attach, if you have multiple panels, you can attach them together in a bank of panels. Okay, if you're not using those can be removed to use just the bare wire, which is what we're going to be doing, because I don't connect my panels using these types of connectors. If you're doing a large system, then you want to get and you're using all the same panels, then you want to get the connectors that all hook together. Okay. Now, the wires will be generally marked what's positive and what's negative. If you look on the box, I don't know if you can see it through the camera right here, but on this one here, it's got a big plus sign for positive, and it's got a big negative sign down there for negative. Now, that's very important because, remember, you're talking about power, and if you get a positive wire hooked up to a negative wire, you're going to get major sparks. You don't want that, so you want to always remember and be checking that you're using your positive wires and your negative wires correctly. That's pretty much it for a solar panel. You want to make sure that you're getting good quality panels. You can buy panels on a lot of different places, but like I said, it's best to work with a manufacturer and a dealer who does it all the time, who's been in business for a long time. I use Northern Arizona Wind and Sun because I trust them. I've purchased panels from them. They've been in business for a very long time, and I know that if I have any problems, they'll take care of it. Also, if you buy panels without knowing the dealer, and that dealer goes out of business, then your warranty isn't going to be any good. Now, generally, a solar panel comes with, most good panels like this one have a 25-year warranty on the output that says that this panel will keep producing within that range that's on that label of power, up to 80% of that for 25 years. It also has a 3-year warranty on the frame, the glass, and things like that. Now, if you buy from somebody that doesn't give you a warranty, they disappear. Even if they tell you there's a warranty and they go out of business, you're going to have a hard time getting your warranty honored. So if you work with a company that's been around for a long time, like Northern Arizona Wind and Sun, they're going to honor their warranty. They're going to take care of you. So that's what I recommend, is working with a good dealer. Now, when it comes to buying panels, let me give you a little bit of advice how you can get them a little bit less expensive. If you buy an individual panel, you're going to pay a little bit more. But if you know that you're going to be getting several panels or more, then what you want to do is you want to order them in bulk. If you get them all at once, you can get usually sets of like 5 or 10 panels at a time, and you'll get a better deal at that. Just talk to the dealer, tell them I want to get 5 panels or I want to get 10 panels of this certain brand or model, and they will give you usually a bulk discount on the panels. Okay, and they'll send them to you all at once. You get a lower price that way. Now, this panel, approximately $380, and for a 135 watt panel, that's a pretty good deal. Right now at today's prices, you're looking at probably about $2 a watt. More expensive panels, of course, are going to be more than that. Now, like I said, you can get the bulk discount. That helps a lot. You can also, if you know that you're going to how big of a system you're going to be getting, and you get your equipment all from the same place, you can get your receipts, and the federal government still gives a 30% tax rebate for installing solar and wind systems. So you keep your receipts, and at the end of the year when you file your taxes, you can get that rebate back on your taxes, which is a really good deal. Some states also offer their own incentives for installing solar and wind, so check with your state to see if there's an additional incentive. Now, if you can get 30% off of the price of your panels to install them, that's a pretty doggone good deal. Now, that incentive from the federal government probably won't be there forever. In fact, they're talking about doing away with it in probably 2013. And so you might want to consider, if you're going to do solar, now's a really good time to install solar or wind power, because you can get the rebate. If you wait till after 2013 to do it, you might not be able to get that federal rebate or the state rebates. Something to consider. Okay, that's the introduction to the solar panel. Now what we're going to do, as soon as it gets sunny outside, I'm going to take you out and we're going to hook this up, and I'm going to show you how it produces power. And then we're going to hook this to the power controller. Then I'll hook the power controller to the battery. and the battery to the inverter so I can show you the entire system working. I'll also walk you through the system that I already have in place. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be taking my system that I have in place on my cabin, and I'm going to be converting it. It's been an outside system with my batteries and everything like that. I'm going to be taking those and putting them into a shed that's set up just for my electronic system. And I'm going to be installing this new panel, and I'm going to be including it into the system, and I'm going to be running some additional appliances like a Sundancer refrigerator freezer off of it. So I'll explain all that in the next video. Thank you, folks, and stay tuned for the next video.